in some recent news going around the NHL world. We're going to stick around right here and talk about a comment that Chris Knobloch made after, I believe it was game two? Yes, game two. It was game two that he came out and said this. And he decided, in his infinite wisdom, to talk about something. It's a big controversy in the NHL. So I know a lot of like big people who aren't super into the NHL might not know this. You might not know this unless you're like an insider. This is some insider knowledge from Knobloch right here. And he said, and this surprised me. This surprised me a lot, and I need to emphasize that. The standards get changed for penalty calls in the playoffs. I don't know if you knew that, Caleb. I don't know if you knew. It's crazy. He like basically came out and said that the playoffs are different and that the playoffs are more physical and it's harder to draw penalties. And he basically came out, and I'm immediately like crapping on the Oilers here. Oilers fans are gonna hate me in this segment. But like to quote exactly what he said, the standards get changed a little bit. He said after Saturday's 3-1 loss, the NHL would definitely want to make sure it's a penalty when it's in the regular season. Maybe some things get let go. That's obviously unfortunate for us. We've got a very good power play, and we win a lot of games on the power play. It's almost like that's how the
he's not subtle.
He's not subtle.
In terms of why he's saying that.
No, yeah, like it's pretty. I said this. I'm gonna immediately repeat what I said to you before the podcast, before we started the segment, which is just, God, that's a boneheaded thing to say. I mean, it's not like that's gonna change. there is not going to be any outcome to you coming out and saying this. That's more the thing that pisses me off about it. It's just straight up stupid. We all know you have a good power play. You're telling us two things we know, and you're asking for a change that is never going to happen.
And what kind of sympathy are you asking for here?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't think your comments are going to get any sympathy from any NHL fan. Even some Oilers fans, I'm sure, the more self-aware ones will go like, okay, like, yeah, I'd like to call more penalties too, but like,
yeah, no, I actually love more power plays. Yeah.
Yeah. I would like the Flames to draw more power plays, frankly, like, or draw more penalties.
Of course, the guy with the best power play in the NHL and one of the better penalty kills in the NHL wants more penalties. Wow, shocker right there. Ain't how the world works, bud.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of. I think I'll take this a couple different ways. I think his comments get even kind of dumber if you look at the second half of this quote that he says. So he said, "It's unfortunate for us that it's tougher to draw penalties in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. That being said, I think the standard is the same for both teams. I'm not saying it's unfair to us, but we would like the same standard." So, like, what are you, like, the thing you're complaining about just gets even dumber then. Because I understand coming out and saying...
You're asking for NHL-wide change to a system that has been known... You have had your entire life of coaching to prepare for the fact that there will be less penalties in the playoffs. I could have told you before the playoffs that would be an issue. Like, that, and this shouldn't be surprising.
Yeah, exactly. I get it to the point where it's like, I get complaining about refereeing you think is unfair. If you think the calls are going one way and you think you're kind of getting screwed over, I understand complaining about that. But what's the point of, like, it just feels so weak to me to go up and be like, yeah, I feel like it was a pretty evenly refereed game, but I'm still going to complain about it.
Yeah, it was pretty even, but give me more power plays, please.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I mean, I think the one thing maybe you can say is, like, I guess it is frustrating if you see some things that you think should be called and they're not. Like, where do you draw the line in terms of what's a penalty and what's not? But yeah, I don't know. Like I think you just have to know that they're going to let some things go.
Yeah, and just to add on to this, this isn't what he talked about, but this is something I was quickly just reading the article that I pulled up in front of me that has the quotes, and something that they did point out is the discrepancies that they have sort of already had. I guess this doesn't have Game 3 in front of me, actually, so I can't tell you what they had in Game 3, but so far the power plays in their series against Dallas, in Game 1, the Stars had 5-man advantages compared to the Oilers 1. If he was going to complain after Game 1, sure, Sure, right? Like,
Yeah.
then we're like, okay, that now you got something to complain about. But game 2, the Oilers recorded 2 power plays to Dallas's 1. They had more power plays in this game. That's the funny thing. Like, it's not even like he's trying to say this after a game that they lost because they had less power plays. You had more power plays than Dallas. You're basically saying, well, okay, no, you're not saying this, but it's the equivalent of almost saying, like, you need that power play to win. Because if you're not winning because if you're not winning 5-on-5 to Dallas and you're asking for more power plays, your argument isn't very sound. Like, that's not a very good argument. I don't know. At least to me, I look at it like that. If, like, make that comment after game 1. Make that comment after game 1 of the playoffs. Because that would have been your first time in the NHL seeing an NHL playoffs going, they call less penalties here. And you could have, like, played off the I'm the new coach type thing.
He has done 2 rounds of this, so it wouldn't be his first time.
Exactly. Well, no. Wait, when was he hired? Isn't this his first year? Am I out of it?
Yeah. But I mean, like, saying this at game 1 of the conference finals.
I meant when I said that, I meant game 1 of the playoffs.
Oh,
but,
yeah. Not game 1 of the series. I get you.
Yeah, no, but, like, either way, either would have been better. Like, this is, like, the worst time to say that. Is more the point I'm trying to make. It's just it's a terrible thing to say as a whole, because you're just gonna look like an idiot. Like, it's just as a whole, it's, I don't know what else you expected. Like, of course you're going to have less penalty calls in the playoffs. That's the playoffs.
Yeah.
If you took that away, there'd be more people mad than happy.
And I mean, what does it even do for you? Because yes, the Oilers' power play is fantastic, and maybe it leads to you getting an extra goal over them. But you're also, by saying this, you're also admitting that that the Stars should have had more penalties called on the Oilers too, right? Because if you think it's even, and you think there hasn't been, yeah. So, like, who's to say that the Stars don't get it? Because even though the Oilers' power play is fantastic, maybe the Stars are the ones who... The Stars are no slouch either. They've got fantastic talent on that team. I don't know. I think it's just such an interesting point. Like, the Stars... I don't know how many of these were empty net, but the Stars did win by 2. It would take a lot in terms of penalties to or unless it's an empty net.
And
I
just
assume
to, like,
it is probably an empty net. But
just to throw out one more quote that Matthias Ekholm came out and said, I think after game 2 as well, I'm guessing, just related to the play that he's sort of seen out there, is he looked at Darnell Nurse's penalty that happened for him, and then 5 minutes later he gets cross-checked in the same spot in the paint, nothing happens, and then he just said, it's hard, it's physical, it's playoff hockey out there, it just seems like we need to kill more than we get power plays, which is kind of the opposite of what Knobloch came out and said right off the jump. Is just in the fact, it's been even. Now you have Ekholm coming out. Nah, it's not really been even. It's, as a whole, it just seems like Edmonton's just trying to find something to blame. Is what it looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
You're losing to a team you're losing to a team that's just better than you at 5-on-5, and you're trying to look for an excuse, and you're not finding it. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I was gonna say, I think that, I think not to Knobloch's credit, I think he's more right than Ekholm, because I'm sure.
Yes, no, I agree.
I'm sure if you go to anybody on the Stars and ask them, they'll probably have a similar story where they're like, oh, our guy got a penalty here, and then the same thing happened to me, right?
Wow.
I think that thing, not just in the playoffs, I think that thing happens in any game, and I think it's dumb to complain about. Just out of curiosity going to the game now, as of right now, I'm sure that the Oilers will probably win Game 4 as of now. There are 6 minutes left.
4-2.
And they're up 4-2. Ironically enough, one of their goals came shorthanded. So, okay there, Knobloch.
Well, and the funny thing about that entire thing as well, like I pointed out, they have a 92.7 penalty kill percentage on the playoffs as well, to show exactly why they would want more power penalties going either way. Because at the end of the day, you're you're putting out your power play that scores like almost, I think, 35% of the time, and you're going to be using your penalty kill if you get any penalties. That stops 92% of that. Math ain't map. Jesus Christ, I'm tripping all over the place. Math ain't mathin'. Holy.
And another thing that I think is ironic, and I'm just going through to confirm this for myself. Let me just look at one more game here, which I think makes these comments kind of even dumber. Edmonton, in the last, I haven't looked at game 1 yet, but in games 2, 3, 4, no power play goals. No power play goals this entire season. Or this entire series.
It's entire season.
No. They've had a couple this season. No, but this series they haven't had any. So at this point, like, yeah, should they be calling more penalties, Chris Knobloch? Maybe, but maybe you should do something with the power plays you're given, because they haven't had a ton, but they haven't taken advantage of them. So
yeah, there you go. Like
it's just a stupid comment to make from a coach in a losing effort. No. And I think if you're obviously he's a young coach, but I think in the future you just kind of have to look at it and say, like, place the blame on the game on yourself or your team to say here's where we can improve. Because I think a coach reaching out and blaming the refs for something that's just a standard, like you said, like it's a standard for a reason. Like it's just the culture to officiate less in the playoffs.
And at the end
blaming
of the day,
that just makes you look like a weak coach.
At the end of the day, it's usually the team with the best 5-on-5 that wins, and at least that's what we're sort of seeing. Not today, but I think it's 2-2 actually. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but I think
it will be 2-2 after this game.
Yeah, I think what we're sort of seeing is just a coach run into a brick wall against a team that he knows they can't beat necessarily 5-on-5 in Dallas, which was something that I think anybody looking at that matchup would have told you. I would have told you that before the series. Dallas is better 5-on-5, but if they start taking penalties, the Oilers absolutely have a real shot to upset them. Like, it's that type of thing, right? No matter how good Dallas is, the Oilers' power play is probably, like I said, I already made this take once earlier on the podcast, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. This Oilers' power play might be the best power play we've ever seen. And I think Dallas knows that. Maybe the reason you're not getting a lot of penalties is because Dallas don't want to be in the box. Like, maybe that's it a little bit as well. Like, Dallas is maybe playing it a little bit on the safer side, even if it is playoff hockey, right? Like, there could be a lot of factors going on there. And I don't know. There's a lot of ways to play physically without taking penalties. And at least to me, I don't know, man. I think it's just a stupid boneheaded comment. Like, God, there's more physicality in the playoffs? Really? There's less penalties? No way.